Okay, we'll continue here. I had a little mix-up there where I forgot to advance. And so here is our slide with Claudius, and I apologize I didn't advance that as I should have when I was covering the last one. But we'll go ahead with this now. This is what it says, and if you want to just pause, you can and jot this down. But moving on to Nero. So Nero, as I said, the first 5 years of his rule are actually surprisingly good. Wise and beneficent would be good adjectives for describing that. He discontinued the practice of delation, if you remember that from Tiberius's reign. Delation, also known as constructive treason, was having an informal network of people who would essentially inform upon those who were saying bad things or negative things about the emperor or his rule. So this seemed like a move in the right direction. And Nero was actually fairly well liked by the Senate early on. However, as things heated up, as his rule advanced, Nero became more and more caught up in some intrigue involving the individuals around him. His mother, Agrippina, was a major source of this. She was actually trying to displace him and have him replaced by Britannicus, which was Claudius's son. Nero fell in line with a woman named Poppaea Sabina, who was supposed to be the most beautiful and wicked woman in all of Rome. I might mention that there have been some allegations that Nero had an incestuous relationship with Agrippina for a time, although that appears to be largely hearsay. We don't really have any reliable sources. It could have been that that was just a way of libeling Nero and further undermining and detracting from his rule. Anyway, in this intrigue and Nero's influence by Poppaea Sabina, he does murder both his mother and his wife. So he murders Agrippina, or has murdered, I should say, his mother and also his first wife. And then he also comes under the counsel of another shady character. His name is Tigellinus, but we'll leave that there. Okay, in 64, again, this is getting about 10 years into the rule of Nero, the famous fires of Rome, the fires of 64 current era, occur. And this is where Nero's reign becomes increasingly questioned. Because, of course, the question is, did Nero have any role in these fires, in which almost half of Rome burned to the ground? Okay, mostly wood construction. The homes of the middle class and the plebeian class of Rome during the early Republic would have been largely made out of wood. And periodic fires were normal, but this was a very significant fire even by Roman standards. And so there's some question about whether Nero had a role in it. Some sources have it that Nero responded very boldly and courageously, that he actually did what he could to open up public buildings for the benefit of the homeless and the hardships that the Roman people faced. Others see that evidence but consider it mostly Nero's effort to save face or distract attention from him, because perhaps he had a central role in having the fires brought into being, in essentially setting the fires, them being an act of arson. However, the way that Nero will attribute blame for this is through what we call the scapegoating of the Christians. He calls attention to a minority, an ethnic minority, religious minority of the early Roman Empire, a group that had not yet really established itself as a strong or forceful presence in Rome, but nonetheless a steadfast group that had emerged out of the Jewish faith as a sort of group that at the time would have probably been known as the Jesus followers. But they also earned the name Christians about the time, in the decades around Nero's rule. So Nero will respond by persecuting this minority, blaming them for the fires, and using this as a way to not only, one, explain away the responsibilities for this tremendous arson or fire, and two, but also to use this as an opportunity to rebuild Rome very much in the way that he would have liked to see it. And of course, this is where he builds all sorts of statues and other public buildings that bear his name in an effort to draw glory and attention to himself. So there we have it. By 68 CE, we've experienced quite a bit in Rome, and now we're going to have an incredibly tumultuous period of time where succession is far from certain. But the Julio-Claudian period was a surprisingly stable time in Rome, especially when considering the highly unstable personalities and characters that served at the top of the chain. Okay, with that we will stop, and I will see you tomorrow.